What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Wednesday morning to you. Happy hump day. But let's do it. Let's get over that hump. I've got a great devotional for you this morning. We're still in our walk through the book of Philippians, and we're still in chapter 2. This chapter is all about, I think, discovering, but really more about cultivating joy in your relationships. You were made and wired for relationships. God is relational in nature. He is Father, Son, and Spirit in perfect harmony. God is wanting to have relationship with us, so you got to have joy in your relationships if you want to experience joy. And in this take on Philippians chapter 2, he's given us the tall task. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but rather in humility value others above ourselves, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus. So he's telling you this. He's about to outline for you the mindset of Jesus. And he's going to say, now, if you adopt this mindset, you're going to be killing it in your relationships. It's going to go so good for you. You're going to have incredible joy in your relationships. So this is it. He said, Jesus, who, although being in very nature God, he did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing. So again, if Todd were God, he would be using all of his divinity to his own advantage because I'm broken and flawed, right? But Jesus is like, no. I didn't use my divinity to my own advantage. I used my divinity to bless the whole world. Right? So he had to empty himself. For him, he was emptying himself of all of his divinity so he could come and live in a body. For you and I, we have to empty ourselves of pride and ego so that we can truly love people. And he says he made himself nothing, so you got to do that. And he took on the very nature of a servant. We talked about that yesterday. We have to adopt and cultivate a servant's heart, a servant's mentality. Now watch this one though. He took the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man. Now, I want to land right there for a quick second because Jesus does something where he basically, this is what the incarnation is all about. I'm going to come down there and I'm going to join and be a part of the human experience just like you would be. And so he really just wrapped himself in flesh and blood, and he came in the what? In the appearance of a man. I want to talk to you real quick about your ability to relate to people because that's what Jesus did. Jesus left behind all of heaven to come and relate to you. And I think this is one of the key factors in terms of you cultivating great relationships. What if in your relationships you said, hey, let me not just stand on my positions, but let me see where you're coming from. Hey, let me not just choose to be right, but actually choose to relate first and see where you're coming from, because then I might actually be able to love you, speak into your life, and be a blessing to you, to be a servant to you even. And so, when you think about this, I want you to think about what the writer of Hebrews said about Jesus. He said, you do not have a high priest who doesn't know how to sympathize with your weaknesses, but in all points was human, just like you were. In all points was tempted, just like you were, but yet without sin. And so Jesus knows. Jesus can relate to what pain and suffering feels like. Jesus can relate to what rejection feels like. You got to remember, his family was rejecting him at times in his life. At his time of greatest need, his 12 disciples, 11, one betrayed him for money, one of them denied him 3 times, and 9 of them went running and scattering. And there was only one guy, even at the cross, when Jesus went his time of greatest need. Jesus knows what pain and suffering and rejection and hurt and criticism, he knows what it's like. Jesus has the ability to relate with you. And one of the greatest tools that you can have is something we would call sympathy or even empathy. Our ability to relate to other people is a powerful thing. There's a really cool parable. It's an Eastern parable. It's not a Bible parable, but it's just a parable somebody made up. But it's about that idea of your ability to empathize with people and how it actually brings healing into their life. And the quick version of the story goes kind of like this, that there was this woman who had a child and loved that child, but the child died. And in her desperation to try to bring the child back to life, she went and saw every type of priest and pastor and healer and you name it. Went to every person that she could possibly find saying, this is my daughter. I love her so much. She died. Can you please bring her back to life? And no one could, of course. And one person said, well, I've heard of a man who has the ability to bring people back to life. If you can find him, maybe he can help you. And so she searches and searches until she finally discovers where this person is. And she heads out on a journey up into the mountains, and she finds a little cabin by a crystal lake, and it knocks on the door. And a man comes to the door, and she says, are you the one? Are you the one that they said can bring things back to life? And he says, I am him. And she goes, can you help me? Can you do something for me? And he goes, I can, but you need to go down to the village below. I need to concoct a potion, and out of it, I need you to go into the village below, and I need you to find a handful of mustard seeds from a home that has never tasted the pain of death. And I need you to bring those back to me. And so the young woman goes down into the village, and she goes from house to house telling her story, asking for people if they could help her out. And in doing so, she finds comfort in the fact that no one can give her mustard seeds. Everyone has their story of pain and suffering and even death. And in doing so, story after story, her telling her own and her hearing others, she realized what the man was doing. That in our ability to relate with one another, we actually journey together. And in the same way with our relationship with God, in relating to Jesus, we journey together. And we recognize that God is not absent from our pain and suffering. God actually joins us in our suffering and helps walk us out of it, walk us through it. Can I get an amen to that? So in all your relationships, think way before I need to be right. I want to relate. I want to connect. I want to empathize, and I want to sympathize. It's a powerful way to cultivate joy in your relationships. Can I get an amen to that? Amen, church. I love you guys so much. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.